Just want to dribble some oil on all these pivots. The fenders as well. Everything's still pretty small, so don't want to bury them in dirt. And I haven't finished planting yet. It's a little bit too wet to plant. Almost too wet to cultivate. Row cultivate with this thing. Not doing it necessarily for weed control. Oh, there are some weeds out there that'll wipe out. Yeah, this one won't spin. It's more for water control and disease control. You set them so that they leave a little bit of mound around the row when you're driving along. This one's a little stiff. It'll roll. And leave a little low spot right in the middle of the row. If you get water running down in the field, or it starts raining hard, the water will run down the row instead of cutting across all the rows and making a big trench. Helps with disease control as well. Part of the reason why we like planting 30-inch row beans. You can go in and row cultivate them. The 30-inch row beans, you don't get a rainforest type environment under the canopy. You know, all that bacteria and fungus and everything like to populate and grow in an area like that. Limited sunlight and limited evaporation. It just kind of stays wet. And that's where a number of diseases come from. Not sure how well I can get into this one. It's not in this position. There we go. I can get it like that. It's got a couple of grease fittings on these discs on either side. It also helps with water control in in the wet. It'll dry the surface, just the little bit that you till up. In the dry, it'll actually cause the opposite of what you want to happen when you're spring tilling. When you're spring tilling and you use a not row cultivator, if you're spring tilling and you use a field cultivator, sweep similar to these, you end up with a hard layer, at least in this soil. This is some pretty thick, silty clay stuff. You end up with a compaction layer right under where they swept across the ground, across the whole entire field. Well, in this case, they're directly between the rows, and you don't do that right in the row. So the roots still go where they need to go, but in between the rows, you've actually cut off the capillary action of the water coming up between the rows, so it actually holds moisture in drought conditions. And we got a little bit of a problem here. We got the mulching done, and we got fertilizer to spare. Well, I figured up how much we're short, and I can actually rig it so I can apply it with these cultivators. There's this fertilizer for the milo, but yeah, I got a 50-gallon tank. Sits on this bracket here. Got it plumbed, and spray tips for spraying directly over the row. But in this case, we'll end up unscrewing these and running the hose over so that it'll drop that fertilizer where those sweeps will incorporate it. You don't want to drop that stuff directly over the row. And this unit have got a suitcase weight on them. They're the ones that track directly behind the drive tires on the tractor, so they naturally don't want to go in the ground as deep. I think I changed the depth on them too, on the depth wheel. I think I actually need to run it down a little bit more. The wheel back down, make it a little bit more shallow. I think I got them digging a little bit too deep. But yeah, there's an art to row cultivating. Takes a while to get, figure out where to drive. And on this 180, I got this loader frame. I just look right down in there, and I just keep the row right in the middle. Pretty easy. It's not that way on a lot of tractors. Just a good guess. Going around turns, that's a little bit more tricky. Also, every single one of these units needs to be centered. You have to have some way of measuring it, some way of knowing exactly where you want them. So they all need to be pretty close to perfect. So on this one, at one time, they've been moved. So when they're that far off, if you're not lined up in the row quite right, you start wiping your crop out. Then you got every single one of these s-tines that need to be pretty close to perfect as well. We've actually made some half sweeps. Cut the wing off of this wing just to use right next to the rows. A little bit wider sweep, and then we could move these duck feet in a little bit closer together and overlap this back sweep. So yes, a lot of time with a tape measure and a wrench, moving stuff around. And you can get them set up pretty good. They follow pretty nice. This one does. And it's still pretty wet out. Section of field over here is a little bit drier. I tried over there along the highway. Up that way it's alright. Back there it's a little bit too sticky. Yeah, just easing along in third gear. Beans are pretty small. Got the fenders down on the cultivators. Right in the middle where it's supposed to be. This is a little bit of a lighter brown color. Typically dries out a little bit faster. Having a little trouble with corn stalks wanting to hang up and when it sweeps. They got these tines that are close to these fenders. Has a little bit of mud buildup there. Knock that off. Yeah, all looks to be an adjustment. I bumped one while I was turning the driveway. It was either this one or the one on the other end. That all looks alright.